Okay, I'm going to answer question 6 or discussion area 6 now. I'm going to do both parts in this video, so this could be a little bit longer video on SEL and the RIT square B behavioral plans. So I'm going to answer the questions as they are given to us, and then I'm going to also ask a question or two because there's something that just doesn't sit right with me 100% on this. So first of all, indicate you completed all learning activities. I have. I've watched the videos, I've participated in the webinar, I've done everything that we had, looked at everything from classroom management plans to every video that we have. So what is the RTI2B framework? The best that I can explain the framework is that the RTI2B framework is that it's multi-tiered and it allows for management of classroom or behavioral activities with increasingly intensive interventions as the behaviors become worse and worse. And when that happens, the way that the state is showing this, the way that the website has it, is that the higher the tier, the lower the percentage of students that are going to be utilizing those services. So that'll help us with determining what kind of supports, what kind of interventions are needed for each of the students based on what level they're at. Most of it being at the classroom level, which is where we come into play a lot more, but also it shows how to handle those situations that do get out of control. How can you utilize and integrate the framework in your classroom? Well, according to what was shown in the note or the papers that we received, like classroom usage and stuff like that, it appears that most of it is having a base explanation. This is what's expected in our classroom. These are our guiding principles or basic expectations of each person in class. Most schools set these up, as I understand, and most of them have things like be prepared, be courteous, things like that. Well, what does that look like in the classroom? I believe strongly in letting students know day one what being courteous is, what being on time looks like, what having your materials ready is supposed to be like, and letting them know up front these are your expectations. Now, I also believe personally, you give a child the opportunity to participate in that or not. I can't make them do right, but I can give them that opportunity. They can choose if they want to go through whatever systems the school has in place to get them into a place of better, I want to say organized behavior than simply just coming in, doing whatever they want, disrupting class, things like that. So you utilize it in the classroom. I think also it doesn't hurt, even in middle school and high school, to have the expectations listed out somewhere on a wall where they can see them all the time. They may forget a piece of it here and there. And you know what? That's okay. I'm not too worried about that because I think it's more my responsibility to have this stuff ready for them so that they can have a clear reference to it at any time during their time in the classroom. So it's always front and present. It's always a part of what we are. And I also believe that in utilizing any of the RTI2B materials, everything in the classroom should be a we do this. That's the kind of culture I want to build in my class. We do this. We are on time. We are prepared. We are courteous. That way I have to be the model for those things to the students, as well as holding them an expectation to do as I say. Now, that way they see this isn't a just do as I say class. This is a do as I do. I will model this for you, which I think is so important, and so overlooked many times. Um, in what ways can schools engage families in the local community to promote the RTI2B framework? You know, maybe this is probably one of the hardest areas for me to think about. Not because I wouldn't know how to do it, but because I think, and this is just my thought, so Dr. Wood, you can challenge me on this if you need to. So many times schools, as I have come to understand, and I have worked with schools as a foster parent, as a parent, and as a community leader, working with schools, the schools think they know everything and they have what's best for everybody's children. And that's not always the case. Sometimes if the schools would just communicate with parents, this is how we do it. This is what we're doing. As a personal thing, in one of the classes that we've had this term, we had to make a flyer for an open house that kind of explained our expectations, explained a little bit about who we are in our philosophy of teaching in a language that was parent friendly, not academic. So I think stuff like that will be more along the lines, because I can't guarantee any school I go to is going to be that open with parents. And they're going to tell them, these are our expectations. And sometimes the parents don't care. But for those that do, I think my communication with them will be more proper than worrying about, is the school going to be communicating that with them? Make sure that I have good email contacts, or that I create some one of those teacher social media platforms for the class, so that parents can see what we're doing. They can see our expectations. They can understand who we are as a classroom. And I think that's going to be better than trying to integrate in other areas. Anything I'll need to communicate, I probably should communicate with the class and the classroom's parents. Like I said, I just don't think it's going to get out in a lot of other ways. Explain what social and emotional learning is. Not happy about this, but I understand what it is. And I thought this was stuff that we would just implement in classroom work. So, what is it? Social emotional learning has 5 pillars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 pillars that it stands on. And that is helping young people develop self awareness. Now, where my problems with SEL are, once again, being a parent, being a foster parent in the past, my responsibility was to teach these things to my children. Now, I get, not every family has that. Not every family has the stability or the lack of trauma or the wherewithal to be able to do this. So I understand where, especially in neighborhoods that have been economically and emotionally different than, say, your bright, bubbly suburbanite school. But I've had kids in these inner city schools as well. The being able to work with the child should be a parent's responsibility above the schools. And I say that without shame. It should be the parent's responsibility. In situations where there is no parent involvement in this area, or it is a mostly negative environment, I can understand why utilizing SEL in your classroom would be an effective strategy to behavior management, to helping young people overcome situations and overcome even their own biases that they've been laid into their brains in their environment. So helping them to overcome, work together, things like that. But these 5 pillars: self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, social awareness, and responsible decision making. Now, I believe that self-management comes from a good self-awareness. Being able to understand who I am and how I play an important role in community. That I am not a stupid kid, or I am not a problem child, or I am not, take those labels off the kids. But once they get a good piece of self-awareness, that they are valuable, that they have intrinsic value that is so incredible that they could be changers of the entire world with their brain. And then management of behaviors come through that awareness. I don't have to do these things because this is the way I've learned how to handle stressors and problems. So I'll do whatever I want. No, in life and in adulthood, we have to maintain a measure of control over our emotions and over our actions. And that comes from an integration of all these SEL principles, like social awareness. Now, I like social awareness because it really talks about how others may feel in a situation. It's about building empathy, and I think empathy is important. Before I do something stupid, how's it going to make somebody else feel? Before I do something that's going to cause a distraction, how is it going to impact the other people around me? That kind of stuff is very important. And I think that in the classroom, that can be taught in a very smart way. And I think that it can become part of by simply asking questions. Somebody's acting out, somebody's doing something. How do you think that's making everybody feel right now? Now, does that put them in a position? Sure, it does. But so do acting inappropriately in adulthood is going to put us in some very awkward social positions. And it's going to cause a lot more ostracization than simply having it called out in front of a couple people. Now, I'm not saying put them down. I'm saying just simply ask, how does what you're doing right now, how do you think that's affecting everybody's learning? I think that's some important questions. And kids need to hear that kind of stuff. All right. Also believe that all of this ties into relationship skill building. Now, working in small groups is what the videos talked about. Helps build project-based learning. Helps build the idea of relationships. That's true. Also, courtesies and basic words like thank you or I'm sorry go a long way in building up those kind of relationships. I also believe that in my own classroom, in the culture classroom, I would rather call them Mr. or Ms. And I know that's dangerous in the world today because, they could be cisgender or whatever. But if they allow for being called a Mr. or Ms., I'd rather call them that than to call them Fred or Susie or Tony or whatever. That way, there's a respect level. They call me Mr. Madden. I want to call them who they are. Okay. Boy, I hate that we've gotten to a place where improper English is allowed, where we call people they. But that's for a different topic. But the idea of respect given, respect earned is a huge part of that, and that has to play into SEL as well. And also responsible decision making. Being able to utilize how does it affect other people? What does it say about me? What is it about self control? Do I have control over myself? All those things coming into decision making. And I love in the video the questioning. What could you have done any better? What could you have done differently in that situation? Man, that allows a brain to go into places maybe it doesn't normally go to. Because, let's just use a bad example of a home where the children are just everybody stupid, right? You're just stupid. You'll never be anything. And they're screaming and hollering at the kids all the time. Believe me, I've seen it. I've counseled through those things. Not a pleasant thing. But working with the child and saying, okay, all right. And they'll usually say when you're talking to them about something they did wrong, I'm just stupid. I'm just ignorant. No, you're not stupid. Think about yourself for a minute. Are you really stupid? No, you've just been told that. Now, with all that out of the way, think for just a minute about how you could have done that in a different way. What a change. What a difference in the way the child responds. Because now they have taken in all of these SEL pillars and been able to apply them into their own life. I think that's incredible. And it shows true learning. Okay? Future wellness, promote your child youth development, and reduce poverty. Number 6. I think I've kind of explained it. You give a child the opportunity to realize they are not what people tell them they are, or they are not what they even think they are, but that they are greater, they are stronger, they are more self-aware, they are more self-managed, they have better social awareness, they have better relationship skills, and they make responsible decisions, then you can begin to talk about how to take next steps in life. It is very simple. You give a child the mindset that they can accomplish anything in this world and they can pull themselves out. They may have difficulty with the influencers around them, but in the end, they may be able to see something different. And that in itself helps propel, it promotes development of youth. It promotes, maybe there's something to this school. Maybe there's something I can do. Maybe becoming a lawyer isn't something that's out of reach for me. Maybe stepping out of this environment that I live in isn't out of reach. Maybe going to college is something that I really can do. I think that's how we reduce poverty. And then how can we integrate it in classroom? I've talked about so many here. I think that's pretty straightforward. But I've got a couple questions I want to ask about SEL. And Dr. Wood, if you want to respond to this, I appreciate it. If not, I understand too. It's just some questions that I found that need to be answered. Do you think that SEL is still ill-defined? Is it still unproven? We've got statistics and we've got some research, but is it really that dominant in academia that we can actually utilize it as the strategy, as one of the best ways to handle class? If is this character development, character education? And while I understand there's a necessity in that, are we looking to take over that part? And maybe some of why we lack in education numbers and things is because we're focusing so much on character training in school as opposed to content for those that need the content. Maybe we're falling behind because of it. I don't know. Please, I'm not saying it. It's just a question that I've got about it. Does this include psychological profiling? Because one of the things I've read about SEL is that a lot of schools are using technology in order to track behaviors based on SEL. So are we doing psychological profiling of students? And if so, is that ethical? I don't know how ethical that is. But there's a couple questions I had. Now, I'm going to move on to course reflections. All right. What are some major takeaways of this course? I see a lot what's wrong with education, well, at least what I perceive to be wrong with education, and a lot of it has to do with academia. There is a huge focus on what appears to be a very soft-sided piece of education. One of the hardest takeaways I have, Dr. Wood, is when I asked we were talking about zero tolerance policies in school. And I asked about students that have taken the crossing the line from, classroom disruption to actual criminal behavior in the classroom, bringing drugs, guns, violence against teachers, things like that. I wanted to, I asked the question about it, and you had told me, well, that's what one side of the parties think like. Well, sure, I understand the difference in political viewpoint, but we never really got to the issue of when is it appropriate to put a kid out of school? And are there behaviors? The way it sounds, some of this behavioral stuff is, let's put them in a circle and talk to them. Let's just sit them in a circle and talk to them. Let's have a cognitive directive therapy session. Oh, I believe in cognitive directive therapies. I've taught them, I've done them, but there's a time when you just got to separate the problem. And I don't get that. I don't understand how you would allow a child that brings a gun to school to sit in a classroom. Intent unknown. That's like a child filling up their water bottle with vodka in the morning. What do we do with him? Do we let him sit in class drunk? Do we put him in another group drunk? Or do we send him home and then have specialized things around him sources and things from the school that can help provide assistance for them. I just couldn't get that out of the class. It felt very political as opposed to, asking, being able to talk through the tough questions. What I enjoy most about the course, I did enjoy learning other viewpoints, making sure that, I wasn't just stuck in my own little closed up world. Nah, rah, rah, rah. I didn't want to be that person. Being able to look into the life of academia, being able to look into the mind of a very liberal mindset on education and how it thinks and how it derives what it wants to do was very positive for me. I tend to lean very hard conservative, as you could probably tell, and I don't listen to a lot of liberal stuff. So hearing the viewpoints came across very liberal to me and gave me an understanding, a deeper understanding, some of which I could sympathize with and I could bring on board into my own existence. And others I just have to shut down because it absolutely makes no sense. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my group too. The group too was so much fun. Corey and Carrie, we had such a good time together, just talking, meeting together, and doing the projects and going over our learning. And they were fun. We had fun talking, and even the diversity in our group was really great to be a part of, and to be able to openly express how we feel without condemnation, without sense of mockery or putting anybody down. Just real open ideas. I love that. We had so much fun doing that. What would I revise about the course? Dr. Wood, I don't have anything to revise in your course. We talk about current issues. We talked about current issues. We talked about the stuff that's wrong. We talked about ways people are trying to make it right. I won't talk about that at all. I would hope that, for future courses, that more open discussion, not just based on, well, that's how one political party thinks, but give better opportunity for all sides to be heard and the argument to take place, beyond just the presentations that we did. Do you think that the required reading content, presentations, and assignments in this class were aligned? Oh, yeah, they were great. I tell you, it was hard to read Cole's work. I mean, that was hard. That was the stuff that he talked about, the radical inequities, terrible, stuff that we had heard about, but not stuff that we had actually embroiled ourselves in. So the coursework was interesting. I love anytime you can do a video and you can listen to somebody else's thoughts. Great stuff. I really appreciated while we were doing the RITB Square process, having not just the videos that described each of the steps in it, but the paperwork that you could actually use in the classroom, examples of that. To me, that spoke as loud as anything else did. And so it fit well. I mean, it was great to be able to see that. And do I have any final thoughts or comments? Wow. The class was okay. I'm gonna be honest. It was okay to me. Maybe it was I was sitting in a little grump, in an area trying to understand how somebody comes up with some of the stuff that they do. But the class was fine. I'm glad we got to talk about current issues. I'm glad I got to think about how education dollars are chased, because that was something I guess I never really paid attention to. Was the money follows a student, and why there's such a battle. It's a battle over power. Who controls the money? Who controls the narrative? Whoever controls the money gets to control the narrative, and those that control the narrative get to control everybody else. So I see that clearer, and hate that politics. I mean that education is a national political garbage. Wish it was more state-run, state-controlled. Let the states create their own standards. Let the states create their own assessments, follow-ups. I mean, the state, Tennessee, can do much, much better with what they do. But I'm still at the place, I don't know why we have a Department of Education for the United States. It's just handing out money. You say you do what we say, we'll give you this money, as opposed to it being, why don't we just let the states control it and let the states have. But if you're going to have a Department of Education, at least let it guide what the states are doing and not just be about the money. All right, well, that's my 2 sessions here. Thanks for the class, Dr. Woods. I'm so sorry that we didn't get a chance to finish out together. I understand what you're going through, and our heart breaks, and we continue to lift you up in prayer. And just hope that, recovery through the process is peaceful for you. And much love to you. Okay? All right, thanks. Bye.